This is The Passion of Cashin, where we share inspiring stories and expert advice from leaders in the lawn care, pest control, and landscaping industries. Join us for insights and lessons from industry visionaries on their paths to success.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm super excited to have Scott Friedman on my show today. Scott is the CEO of GT Landscape Solutions located in Kaiser, Oregon. And I've had the pleasure of working with Scott and his team for 2 years now on a sales development project. So I really get to know Scott real well, and I get to know how he operates. And that's why I'm so excited. And that's the reason why I want him here, because I believe that we can all learn from Scott's successes in building and growing companies. He truly is a master at it. So hello, Scott. Thanks for fitting us in.
Hey, good afternoon, Duane. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. We're going to teach people so much on this podcast.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, let's go.
All right. So you demonstrated an entrepreneurial spirit very, very early in your life with your paper route. And I don't know if you know that, but you're in really good company. You've got other very famous people like Warren Buffett, billionaire. He had a paper route. Ross Perot. He didn't get elected.
I didn't charge enough, obviously.
Yeah. Ross Perot. Walt Disney, probably one of the most courageous and creative entrepreneurs to walk the earth. But the guy who had a paper route that I think you're most like is John Wayne. Yeah, John Wayne. He was, excuse my language, but he was a badass, right? Nothing got in that guy's way.
I agree with that.
I think you're kind of like that.
All right, I'll take it. I'll take the compliment. All right.
No, you're kind of like that. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing. I mean, what factors do you think sparked such an early interest in business?
You know, it's kind of interesting because I've looked back on that quite a few times. And honestly, I think it was a compare and contrast that I had. And always just an independent spirit. I think that was just kind of part of my DNA, not something that probably was taught, just in there. But my uncle was entrepreneurial, and he drove fancy cars and just seemed to have a different lifestyle. And on the flip side, my dad, God love him, he worked really hard. He was a manager of 2 hotels. And I kind of watched what that looked like from the employee standpoint and the adversities that he had throughout his career, being a manager but working for somebody. And at one point he'd lost his job. And of course, me as a little kid, I thought he was the greatest at whatever he was doing. Mm-hmm. I had no concept whether, if he was actually good or not at it.
Sure.
But it was kind of a trauma to recognize that somebody else controls your purse strings. And I didn't like that. And so on the other side, I saw my uncle who seemed to control his own. So that was, I would say, as close to a defining moment as I had that kind of started that entrepreneurial pursuit.
That's really interesting. So you called yourself a free spirit at a young age. What were you, 11 years old?
Oh, I was probably honestly younger than that when I first kind of started recognizing it. But I think I became impressed by the schedule the most early on. So when I was with my uncle, he just did what he wanted. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together about any of it. It just immediately to me seemed like more freedom, and that kind of spoke to me.
Okay. All right. And you wanted to be in control.
Yeah. And I realized it wasn't as easy as it looked. With it's not about driving fancy cars, but
that must have been kind of traumatic to see your dad lose his job.
It was, and I really do think that was kind of one of those turning points for me. Mm-hmm. Some self-identification of just that I'm not going to ever be in that place.
All right. And I know you studied finance in college. What role do you think that your education in finance has played now in your running your business so successfully? What role do you think it plays?
Well, it plays all the role. So I have no formal training in landscape. I had no formal training outside of my degree, which was in finance, not in horticulture, not in landscape architecture. So all I really understood was numbers. And this business kind of evolved as per se into what it is today. But all I really understood about it was numbers. And so all the rest of it has taken me 25 years to figure out. The easiest part for me was the numbers part. which honestly, through the economy changes, through all the financing that we've had to do over the years just to grow and expand, and it's been really integral in the success and growth of my
Hmm.
company, is just understanding
Hmm.
basic finance, profit and losses, balance sheets.
So can you think of a couple of what you'd consider fairly major decisions that you made, maybe turning points where your knowledge of finance really came into play in helping you make the right call?
Yeah, and I can probably flip it around and tell you when finance said to do one thing, and then I used the like my gut and went the other way on it, and
All right.
finance ruled out. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, early on when we were looking to kind of expand, I was able to navigate the SBA process rather expeditiously.
Okay.
I didn't rely on anybody. It was not a lot of people. It's intimidating because it's a lot of financial questions and business plans, and it felt like homework from college. So it
Hmm.
really wasn't
Hmm.
a challenge to navigate that. And so that allowed us to build our first freestanding office location that really just became what the company is today. And so that was really a critical piece for me. I was 21, maybe at that
Wow.
age. And
Wow.
so that skill set was very valuable to be
Hmm.
able to do that.
Hmm.
And people my age, without that training, would have to hire people and really not even know the questions to ask or how to answer the questions that get asked of you.
Yeah, being able to converse on a business level.
Yeah.
You build
And on the flip
credibility when
side,
you
I spread numbers on a we were moving up into the Portland market, which is north of us about 60 miles, and the numbers said it was a bad deal. A confirmation bias said it'll all work out. It's not a bad deal. Turned out to be a bad deal.
Okay.
The
Wow.
numbers said it, and so I knew better, and so sometimes even having all the numbers in the world, if you don't listen to them, they're not.
So the numbers tell a story, right?
Absolutely.
And it sounds like you ignored the story and you just went with your gut.
Well, I listened to the whole story and then decided to take a different takeaway that it'll just
Okay.
work anyways.
All right. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sometimes there's those little things that do, but when you're really looking at big decisions like that, if you've got to overcome a numbers game and you're just going to say, well, I'm just going to make it happen, the numbers still don't lie. They still all are what they are.
Yeah.
So in those cases, it's helpful to listen too.
Yeah. Yeah, it is sometimes, that's for sure. So, the purpose of this podcast, one of the several purposes, is to really help owners and their leadership and sales reps, of course, to understand how, in this case, how you have navigated the sales process. And where I'm going with this is when you're training your reps and you're coaching them, which I know you do quite a bit of, how do you relay the importance of understanding finance? I mean, we've talked about them being able to build credibility and trust with buyers and to create a peer-to-peer relationship where the buyer looks at this rep and says, wow, they're just not a salesperson. This person really has some insight into my business. And that involves finance, right? Can you tell us a little bit about how you inject this financial learning and importance into your sales team?
Yeah, I mean, understanding the flow of money is critical in closing deals because timing has everything to do with the flow of money and also the goals of the use of money. So, in our instance, we're in the commercial marketplace. So, having an understanding from an owner's perspective of rates of return, for example, on an asset. I teach the reps those things so they can
Hmm.
have business conversations with those types of people. They're speaking the right languages. Budgets are huge in all commercial properties. So having an understanding of what is a budget, how are budgets broken up, how is money allocated? Are they capital expenses? Are they operating expenses? So we spend a lot of time on finance
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, in the commercial market, which is what we exclusively deal with, it's all about money. It's all about finance. At the end of the
Hmm.
day, these are assets returning returns for ownership. And if we don't have any thought about the cash and the actual business asset that we're working with, We're just out there trying to get a lower price than anybody else to the client.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that I've heard you repeatedly point out that price is an important factor in the landscaping business. I mean, from a buyer standpoint, they do focus quite a bit on price and the rep's ability to have a business conversation. Does that help? Although you're talking about money, does that help take the buyer's mind off of price and put it more on, hey, this rep is really delivering value and this company GT, they're different. Is that part of your play here?
Yeah, I think the bigger play probably is understanding the pricing objection, maybe, because in some cases it really isn't price, it's a budget issue. The price is fine, the budget is broken. So sometimes it's navigating through a budget process. So it's very critical that we understand all about these clients, but really when it does get down to those price objections, having that financial mindset is really important, because sometimes
Yeah.
budgets renew in August. Sometimes they're on different fiscal years than calendar years.
Mhm.
So it sometimes really isn't the price that we're charging, it's the price we're charging today and how
Okay.
that relates to the current budgets.
And sometimes they put their budget together and it's not very well thought out in terms of what they really need, right? I mean, the scope
Absolutely.
isn't what they really need. Is that
100% correct. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's up to the rep to uncover and help them see that, I guess.
Yeah. And help them also then, how do they move that budget process from
Yeah.
point A to point B to get them to where they need to be?
What's your take? How would you describe for our audience your take on consultative selling, how you leverage it and why it is so important? Tell us your thoughts on that, please.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, people do business with people they know and like. And when you're a sales rep, if you're not interested in the client, you dismiss that entire thing. They don't know you. You have to get to know the person you're doing business with. So consultative selling really is that process through discovery of getting to know not only the business needs, but also some of the personal needs. Because
Mhm.
sometimes those are the stronger needs that we sell towards, is personality trait type things. Sometimes
Mhm.
that's an easy fix with current providers. But really, our biggest focus is on retention as well. So if you do proper discovery, you do a really good job at the consultative sales process, you really do understand your client and you're building kind of a
Mm.
collaborative spirit from the onset. And you can
Mhm.
retain them because you really do understand them.
Yeah, and the right expectations are set too, I would imagine,
Absolutely.
which helps
Absolutely.
with retention.
Retention. And
Yeah.
so that discovery and asking lots and lots of questions
Mhm.
is really,
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
critical.
All right. Well, that's helpful. Tell us a little bit about what you're observing in the landscaping marketplace these days, and what advice would you give to a landscape company owner that's trying to grow their business based on what you're seeing in the
Yeah.
marketplace?
Well, I think it goes back to fundamentals. We're experiencing on the West Coast through a lot of the activity of private equity, a lot of consolidation of larger companies, and a real push for revenue over profit. So top line
Mm.
revenue now seems to be a real target, and maybe not as much on the net. I would say for those that are building their companies, let that occur and know your numbers and know what you need to charge, and make sure you're running good strong financial numbers on what you do, and find the niches in the market that allows you to get that price, because it is out there. It's crowded, but it's not. There's, if you do it right, there's plenty of room for everybody.
And this is interesting. You say that they're favoring gross revenue over profit. Is that because they're thinking of flipping the business and that the revenue will be more impressive than the profit? Tell us a little bit more about how that works.
Yeah, I mean, so when private equity gets involved, they're looking for a multiple on the sale. So they're looking to put together as many companies as fast as they can. Inevitably, profits go up, sales go up just because you're buying companies. In a lot of cases, some do a good job, some don't. But there is an absolute drive for growth. And so with that growth comes a bunch of new faces, and again, the focuses of a lot of these companies are changing. So when you're looking to grow, the easiest way to grow is to throw low prices. I mean, that just is a strategy, a low cost provider strategy.
Hmm.
I think because they're challenged to grow and keep those growth metrics, the pricing is coming down and getting tighter in the marketplace. So that's why it's really important you know your numbers to be competitive and know when not to, know when to back out and know when you've got a really good prospect in front of you.
Mhm. So along the lines of the market being crowded, I don't hear you using the word it's super competitive, but you are saying that it's crowded. What sort of behavior are we seeing in the leadership and the sales team in a landscaping company that you would say, man, they are a tough competitor? Can you kind of describe how they're going about their business, what their behaviors are?
Yeah, they're sticking to the formula that's worked for them. They've all got a secret sauce. And the ones that are successful that I would say competitive, they do a nice job. Client is the center of focus. And there are good companies out there. Even some of the companies that private equity has gotten a hold of still do a nice job. They just don't do it as uniformly as they once did. For the people that out there that we call genuine competitors, they're doing all the same things we are. They're doing the business development. They've got, they're client centric in their focus. Our secret sauce is definitely different than the others, but more or less they have what works for them and how they go about doing it, and they stay true to it. And there's lots of room for us because there's just a different approach to everything, and not one is correct. There's lots of different ways to do it.
Do you think that many landscape or many buyers of landscape have a perception, an incorrect perception probably, that all landscape companies are basically the same? Do you find that in the market?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I find that even when I interview people, the magnitude of the green industry is kind of a hidden gem. How actually large it is, how professional it is, where the wages are in it. There's just a lot. There is a lot of misconception on that, and there's different levels of companies. So we find a lot of times people will infer that those are our competitors, and I don't care about a single one of the chuck in the truck kind of folks. They're just not. They're not in our market.
Yeah.
But it would be not uncommon for even a big commercial property manager to make that reference to us as if we were equivalent. Yeah, so there is for those that don't really know and haven't managed large properties, they have no concept.
So this really challenges the sales rep, I would think, in differentiating themselves and your company.
That's one of the most significant barriers is allowing our sales team to educate them on something they don't know. And that's hard when you're in a position of authority. In a lot of cases, you are supposed to know. And so overcoming that barrier is hard if you're not approaching it correctly. And that's where that consultative selling really is critical, is trying to figure out how best can I explain what it is that we do genuinely different than a chuck in the truck, and why that's not a comparison that's,
So to help our listeners, they're probably facing this similar challenge.
Absolutely.
The feeling on behalf of the buyers that many landscaping companies are very much the same. It causes the buyer to put more focus on price. What are the expectations that you have for your salespeople in performing with that challenge? What are your expectations in terms of their study and their knowledge and their prospecting level and their networking level? I mean, can you describe for us what you expect your salespeople to do, execute?
Yeah, I mean, so our team has a bunch of numerical metrics, obviously, because all things derive back to math. So we really start the foundation of how we go to market from that mathematical equation of touches of people and assume conversion rates. But when my people are out there, what we're really trying to understand is there a pain at all? Because they assume the quality of product is there regardless of whose name's on the truck. They have some already mindset and thought, at least when they're talking to my company, that they're going to be getting a high quality product. Our product offering has no value to them at all. So the fact that we're the best at cutting grass or the greenest grass, nobody cares. They don't care at all. really have to do, and what we really teach our reps to do is go find what they care about, what really matters to them in a relationship, and we have to teach them how to utilize us because we're and we aren't the same as a small contractor. We're definitely not the same as one of the mega large ones. So there's a lot of introduction to how to work with us too. We focus a lot on that listening.
Is it rather interesting what you just said a moment ago that they don't really care about the mowing, they don't really care about the lush green grass? Is that a mistake you think a sales rep makes in landscaping to promote those features, hoping it's going to move the buyer? Is that a strategic error on a sales rep's part?
I believe it is 100% because
Mhm.
I mean, to say that you do something is just simply that. It's just that you're saying you do it. And there's no differentiation because the next rep can walk in and repeat exactly what you said. And
Yep.
unless you have like some tangible way you're presenting that as a differentiator, you're just telling them that all the things they're not even listening in most
Mhm.
cases because
Mhm.
they have something there that's already possibly working for them in a lot of cases. And then in the ones where, it's an acute hot fire, it's also really critical because what you don't want to do is insert our own thoughts on the client either. They have a
Mhm.
pain, and if we're not listening to it, we're going to be right in line with that next contractor
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, the green grass didn't matter. It was something else different.
Yeah. And that I think you earlier in this conversation, you mentioned that the discovery phase is so important. Can you tell us a little bit about the guidance you give your team on discovery? What does a good discovery look like, and how is it leveraged later in the process?
Yeah, I think discovery, you really have to kind of break it down there's a variety of steps in it, but what we basically try to do is create a continuum per se. So our discovery want to take somebody from their current reality to a future reality, which is working with GT. So as we go out and meet with the clients and we try to do it at multiple levels, we're basically just pulling together that story and those compelling business reasons for them to work with us.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so when you go out, there's a lot of the coaching on discovery for us is just how do you get questions answered that they don't want to and so a lot of that is just you've got to be really perceptive and understand personality types actually have a strategy. So the biggest thing I guess that I do coach is make sure you got a plan. If you're going to go talk to somebody, you've got to know what you're trying to walk away with. Otherwise you forget and you go in there and you waste their time and you waste your time.
It sounds like you recommend that in any touch that the rep has an objective that they want to accomplish.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Without
Yeah.
without that, you're just out having conversations and shaking hands and kissing babies.
Yeah, without any real direction and uncovering the pain and demonstrating how they can overcome that by doing business with your company, I guess.
Absolutely.
Do you recommend that your reps use a lot of examples talking about your existing clients that you've helped that have had similar experiences? Do you find that that is a good way to build value in a buyer's mind?
I think in the market that we are in, I don't know as much value being created, but I do think it creates a lot of credibility because
Oh.
if somebody else is using you and or you have a great reference, sometimes the barrier to change is change because change is you might not be happy where you're at, but the risk of change involves more work. Sometimes those examples to give does lend credibility, I think, quite a bit to overcoming that barrier of change sometimes.
I really like the distinction you made between establishing credibility and delivering value. You
Yeah.
just made that
Yeah,
distinction.
of course, they're very different. Yeah, they're very different.
Tell us your thoughts on that because that's interesting, I think.
Well, so to be credible, as a salesperson, you have a stereotype in a lot of cases. And
Big time.
I really coach my salespeople to press into it. They know that they know why you're there. So tell them at some point you and I are doing business together. And my job is I'm going to be here till you give me a swing at it. Right. But you're not credible. You're just a sales guy. But if you actually continue to show up, come back, have referrals from other people that work with you, now all of a sudden, now you are a credible person representing a credible company they may want to do business with. So now that they want to do business with you, then you have to begin to create the value of doing business with you, which is where those things are distinctly separate.
And link
And
it
then
for it. The value is created by
so
having
that's
listened to their pain. Tell us about that.
exactly, and listening to, what gets you to that point, and all the while that you're establishing credibility, you're asking questions to build that continuum. Because again, we want to take them from where they are to where we want them. So we have to learn, and that can be done at various levels. That might be a manager, that might be a higher up, could be a maintenance guy, and using those people to build that case for you is again then where that value is solving problems and pains for those people.
So it's obvious you're a very strategic thinker, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about continuums. You're talking about the different stages and the phases. You're making a distinction between basically doing a feature dump, which is meaningless because you said any rep can do that. You mentioned listening. You're asking quite a bit of your reps. You're asking them to really learn and to grow. How do you motivate them to have your vision?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. Hopefully
What do
hire
you mean
right.
you don't know?
I think hire right is part of it. I'm a trainer. I like coaching. So, sometimes it's harder to do than other times. Sometimes there's different skill sets of people, but the end of the day, it's a relationship building business. And so if you are a relationship person, it's a great position. And the more you're in it, the more relationships you build. And in essence, the job does become easier. So if I can help a rep get over that ramp up period of a year, year and a half, if they can really figure it out, and again, they thrive on relationship building because and winning. You got to like to win to be in sales. They do really well. And then you just got to keep them in a team environment that everybody.
So, we've all experienced the challenge of identifying in a sales rep in the interview process, one that has the package. It's not easy. You
Is it?
said hiring is important, which I don't think anybody would disagree with that. So when you're interviewing, what are you looking for and how do you go about your interview to uncover if this person has the goods? Tell us about what you do.
Well, that's interesting because it changes.
Okay.
So with every experience, if your eyes are open, you'll learn.
Mhm.
And with every person that you hire, you realize where their strengths lie. And after working with them, you also become well aware of where they're not as strong. And so you start focusing on those things at the next go round. So we use kind of a personality profile that we're still tweaking and working with. I think that at first I identified with your help, hunting, I felt like really is important for sales reps, but
Yeah.
it's equally as important to be well organized and have a sales process. Because if you hunt, but you can't keep track of it, that's a real problem. So some of it's just a touch and feel and it's a working process at all times. But
One of the things I know that you're proud of is the fact that you are a fast learner, right? We talked about that. You said, yeah,
yeah,
you learn pretty fast. And I also, one of the things that I've learned from you is that it's so important to learn from our mistakes.
have to.
That really, I really think there's a very strong correlation between professional athletics and sales. You've just articulated a lot of things that are really necessary. Listening, having good, strong product knowledge, don't doing a feature dump, getting to the pain, identifying their personality. This is, and when reps are out there just winging it, there's no way they're going to differentiate themselves, right?
No, I mean, you can't hire a salesperson and say, go out and sell. I
Yeah.
mean, you just can't do that. Even if they're professional salespeople, you've gotta coach them and
Yeah.
be able to help them articulate that story till they're part of the culture of the company. And then that story will just flow through them.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I know that you're very proud. You have a son who's high performing at the collegiate level, a gymnast. Tell us a little bit about how you've influenced him to be such
I don't think I did much. I think he has the DNA that
uh,
of the I call it the grind DNA. I don't know. I've got a personality that likes to just work hard at stuff, and I'm goal oriented, and so I think that just that is in him. And When he was 8, he watched the Olympics and wanted to try gymnastics,
That's
and that
awesome.
was that. And now he's finishing up at the University of Nebraska this season, and then he'll walk off that gymnastics career, which will
That's
be,
fantastic.
yeah,
You must be super proud. And I
I
know
am.
your other son, who I've met, who's really seems to be following in your footsteps. He's joined you in your company, hasn't
He
he?
has. Yeah, he has. That's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah,
I'll bet.
love it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
it's
proud. You're
yeah, you get to see a side of your kids that you don't see,
hmm hmm
which has been really fun, and yeah, and it also gives you somebody that you trust.
All right. All right. Well, okay. I got two other things I have to ask you, but then we'll wrap this up. Let you go
Sounds good
back
to
to
me.
running your magnificent organization. A lot of owners I talk to, they say, Duane, what do I do when I've got a sub performer? I've got somebody who's just not cutting it. What do I do? What advice would you give them on dealing with a rep who, in fact, is not getting the job done?
Well, you've got to be direct. You got to be honest with them, and you've got to lay out for them what it is exactly that is making them not hit their targets. It has to be very clear.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're clear targets, they should be clear to measure. And so if they're not, then it gets to a situation where you're going to have to decide how to handle that, and putting a rep on a 90-day plan with the metrics to hit is
Mm-hmm.
how we handle it. So that's, yeah, and again, really hyper focusing on the things that matter to the metrics. Yeah, a lot of sales reps get lost in conversations, and they forget about closing activities, and they forget about moving that continuum. They just
Mm-hmm.
meet a lot of people because they're connectors, hunters per se. And so, yeah, when they're not performing, it's trying to rein them in and making that decision. What is the cause of the non-performance? Is it that they're just not good at the job? Are they disorganized? Do they have a fear, perhaps, that is standing in their way that you haven't uncovered in coaching? Are they asking for the deal? It could be as easy as, sometimes reps forget to ask for the sale.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but
Yeah.
you have to have a clear metric for them so that
Mm-hmm.
you can measure it in the event of a non-performance.
So a little earlier, you said you can't just hire a rep and say, go out there and sell. It's not quite that simple. So when you have this sub performer and you put him or her on this 90-day plan, and you've been very concise in explaining the metrics and the goal, do you provide any other training, support? How do you help them get out of this? I mean, I know you well enough to know you're not just going, listen, go ahead and get it together or you're out of here. How do you help them in that 90 days?
I'm hands-on. I mean, I have a once a day contact, when I've got a rep in that situation. I do specialized coaching. I utilize consultants and industry experts to help, because
Hmm.
sometimes you just don't identify the problems correctly as the manager. You perceive it as something, but it may be something totally different. But I ultimately have to make the decision of is this somebody that you're really trying to work with or not? Are you, if you're trying to work with them, then work with them. Then
Yeah.
invest what you need to make sure that decision is sound. If they're not, and you're doing it just as a lip service, you're probably wasting your time,
Okay.
and it would be a waste to even put them on a plan. Just be direct and call a spade a spade.
Yeah. Yeah. It's business.
Yeah, I
All
mean,
right. Last question. You ready for the last question?
right. It's a tough one. What is it?
No, it's, you know what it is. Every interview has to have this. And that is reflecting on your journey.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Over the last 25 years, you started this company in 99, I think.
99.
99. So looking back in the last 20 years, if you went back with the knowledge that you have right now,
Oh,
what changes would you have made in your life personally and in business?
oh man. To be honest with you, so I started in business very young.
I
Did
know.
not I didn't work for anybody. I had one manager my entire career. So, looking back, it created a sense of arrogance a little bit that my success occurred as quickly as it did.
Mm,
And I found that I outgrew a lot of competitors very, very quick. So I kind of thought I was the smartest guy in the room for quite a while. So as I look
okay.
back, I realized that That was just arrogance and just being young and dumb. And had I have actually sought after the counsel that I value today at such a high level, I'm plugged into every resource I possibly can today because I recognize the magnitude of my ignorance. And so that's probably the biggest thing that I would change. The only other thing is I didn't recognize the difference of building a company and working in your company. And they're very different distinctions. And I couldn't figure it out. It took me almost 20 years, less than 20 years, but probably took me 19 years to genuinely understand and figure out what that difference is.
That reminds me of Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
exactly what he talks about in that book, right? If anybody watching this hasn't read The E-Myth, you should.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
The Game of Business is a great one.
Yep.
I forget the author, but thinking of it in that, and I think that a lot of owners don't set up a actual goal for themselves.
Okay.
Is the goal to grow? You're going to grow your company. Why? Is it because you want a certain amount of money? Is it because you want to sell it? If you want to sell it, who are you selling it to? Build that. And so I think that, is kind of the other thing is I'd set goals for myself, but they weren't really hard and fast into any destination per se.
Mhm.
Like, oh, I want to get to 5 million in sales. Great. Well, why? Just because. So you're never really accomplishing anything. So that's the other thing I've learned. We set very, very finite goals. I know where I'm headed. I know where I want to be in 5 years and in 10 years. And that came with just some age and
It
experience.
sounds like you're a bit
Get
more
a little bit.
humble. You're a bit
Oh,
more
you get
humble,
out
maybe.
after 25 years in business, you get humble. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you survive.
Yeah. That's awesome. You just said something. You triggered a thought. I know what it is. You're into knowing the why. It seems like as human beings, if we know the why, whether we want to lose weight, we want to exercise more, we want to make more money, we want to grow a company, really doesn't matter what. If we know the why, that gives us the motivation to stick with it over the long haul. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Scott, this has been fantastic. You're such a busy guy. You took time to do this for everybody. I really thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. It was fun, Duane. Anytime.
All right. See ya.
Everybody, yep. See you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.
This is the passion of Cashin.